Hey everyone, glad to have you here back on the channel. Today we've got a gripping story about a guy who heads to Pattaya, Thailand, for what he expects to be a dream vacation. But things don't go as planned. What was supposed to be a fun escape quickly becomes a series of mysterious happenings. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our new stories. All right, let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Jake, a 28-year-old from Australia. What started as a simple plan for a relaxing getaway to Pattaya, Thailand, took a strange turn and became an experience that still haunts me to this day. I expected the usual vacation, sunny beaches, good food, and a few nights out. But what I got was far from that. It wasn't the typical story of wild parties, cocktails by the pool, or lazy days soaking up the sun. Instead, I found myself caught up in something much deeper and much darker that made me question everything I thought I knew. When I first touched down in Pattaya, I was buzzing with excitement, ready to dive headfirst into the nightlife I'd heard so much about. The city's reputation for its bars and girls had definitely reached me, and I was eager to experience it all firsthand. I had a simple plan in mind: stick to the two-night turnover, where I'd meet a new girl every few days, have some fun, and move on. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just a carefree time, enjoying the party scene without getting emotionally involved. For the first couple of weeks, that plan worked like a charm. It was all a blur of excitement, bar hopping from one lively spot to another, paying bar fines to spend time with some of the girls, and just soaking up the wild energy of the nightlife. Each night felt like an adventure, and I was living the kind of carefree lifestyle I'd imagined. But after a while, something changed. The excitement started to wear off, and the nights that once felt thrilling began to feel routine. Everything started to blend together. New faces, the same conversations, and fleeting encounters. I began to crave something more than just these short-lived flings. Still, I stuck to my plan, avoiding anything that resembled a deeper connection, even though a part of me wondered if I was missing out on something more meaningful. Then I met Lynn. She worked at a small tucked-away bar off Beach Road, and there was something about her that immediately pulled me in. It wasn't just her appearance, although she was beautiful, but her bright, lively personality and that contagious laugh that made her stand out from the rest. After we exchanged a few drinks and had a long, easy conversation, I felt a real connection, so I decided to pay her bar fine and take her out for the night. At first, the night was going perfectly. We were having fun, laughing, and everything seemed to be falling into place. But out of nowhere, Lynn's mood shifted. She became nervous, like something was weighing on her mind. She opened up a little, telling me she was dealing with a family problem, but assured me she would still stay with me for the night. Despite her visible distress, I couldn't deny the connection I felt with her, so I tried to roll with it, hoping things would smooth out. We went back to my hotel, but her anxiety never really disappeared. It hung in the air, making things feel a little tense. I tried to comfort her, but something was clearly off. When I woke up the next morning, Lynn was gone. No note, no goodbye, just gone. That uneasy feeling I'd had the night before stuck with me, and it only got worse as the day went on. By late morning, I started feeling sick. At first, it was just a dull ache, but soon my whole body was in pain. Then the fever hit, and it escalated quickly. I tried to push through, thinking I could shake it off, but by evening, I was completely wiped out, too ill to even leave my room. Something was definitely wrong, and I had no idea what was happening. I was drenched in sweat, and my head was spinning with confusion. My initial thoughts were simple. Maybe I'd picked up something bad. Food poisoning, perhaps? After all, Pattaya isn't exactly known for its top-notch hygiene. The food and drinks I'd consumed in the days leading up to this could have been the culprit. But as the hours passed and my symptoms worsened, a deeper, unsettling feeling began to gnaw at me. It wasn't just the fever and body aches that were making me uneasy. It was the strange timing of it all. Lynn's sudden disappearance and my rapid decline in health seemed too coincidental. I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be a connection between her leaving and my illness. Maybe I was overthinking things. Perhaps I was just being paranoid and letting my imagination run wild. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't ignore the eerie sense that something more sinister was at play. Desperate and worried, I decided to call Lynn, hoping she would come back and help me. To my relief, she did return. She stayed by my side, tending to me through the night as I drifted in and out of a feverish sleep. Her presence was comforting, and I was grateful for her support during such a vulnerable time. However, as I started to feel better, I began to notice some strange changes in Lynn's behavior. She was receiving a flurry of phone calls and text messages, which she would often take in hushed tones. One night, after a particularly intense call, Lynn suddenly rushed out of the room, leaving me alone and worried. When she came back, she was visibly shaken and seemed more anxious than ever. Her reaction was so out of character that I couldn't help but wonder what was going on. Who was she talking to? Why was she so upset? These observations left me feeling uneasy. On one hand, I was thankful for her care and concerned for her well-being. On the other hand, her behavior seemed increasingly suspicious. I was torn between my gratitude and my growing sense of distrust. For the next few days, things seemed to settle down. Lynn was more composed, and we resumed a somewhat normal routine. Despite this, I couldn't shake off the doubts lingering in my mind. I resisted the urge to question her too much, fearing that probing might push her away. I even began to rethink the two-night turnover I had followed so strictly. Maybe Lynn was different from the others, and perhaps I didn't need to keep things so casual. Yet, no matter how much I wanted to believe in a deeper connection, that nagging sense of unease never fully disappeared. One afternoon, as Lynn and I wandered through the busy streets of Pattaya, her phone buzzed with a new message. I noticed her face change, just for a second, before she quickly shoved the phone back into her pocket, avoiding eye contact. It was a small, subtle moment, but it lingered in my mind, raising my suspicions. Later that night, while Lynn was in the shower, my curiosity got the better of me. I knew it was wrong, but something just didn't feel right. So I did something I never imagined I would. I picked up her phone and began scrolling through her messages. My heart raced as I went through them. Most of the texts were in Thai, making it impossible for me to understand. But then, one conversation in English caught my attention. It was with someone named Kay, and the messages were cryptic and unsettling. "I don't think he suspects anything," one read, followed by another that chilled me. "I'll handle it soon. Just give me more time." My stomach sank. Were they talking about me? My mind raced with questions. Who was Kay, and what exactly were they planning? What had Lynn gotten herself into, and was I somehow a part of it? Just as the panic started to set in, I suddenly felt a hand on my shoulder. I jumped and the phone slipped from my hands, hitting the floor with a thud. I turned around, my heart in my throat. Lynn was standing behind me, still dripping from her shower, wrapped in a towel. Her face was a mix of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling with both hurt and fury. The room felt thick with tension, and I was left speechless, knowing I'd crossed a line but also terrified of what I had uncovered. I tried to explain, stumbling over my words, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. The fragile trust that had held us together had shattered. Without a word, Lynn snatched her phone, her face a mix of anger and hurt, and stormed out of the room. The door slammed behind her, leaving me in stunned silence. For hours I sat there, replaying everything in my mind. My thoughts spiraled, and the more I tried to make sense of it, the more I realized how deep I was in. This wasn't just about a fling gone wrong or a relationship falling apart. There was something darker at play, and I had stumbled right into the middle of it. I felt like I was sinking into something I couldn't fully grasp. And the cryptic messages, Lynn's strange behavior, and now her sudden exit left me feeling completely lost. Later that night, just as I was starting to wonder if Lynn would ever come back, there was a knock at the door. My heart leapt in my chest, thinking it was her. I rushed to open it, but instead of Lynn, I found myself face to face with a tall, muscular man. His presence was imposing. Broad-shouldered, with a sharp jawline and eyes that seemed to see right through me. His expression was hard, and he radiated a quiet menace that made my stomach churn. In a calm but chilling voice, he said,
"We need to talk about Lynn."
A cold wave of fear washed over me. I swallowed hard, trying to stay composed. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely steady.
"My name is Kieran.
he said, his gaze locked on mine.
You've gotten yourself into something you don't understand.
His words hung heavy in the air, and a deep sense of dread settled in my chest. I realized then that this was far more serious than I could have ever imagined, and whatever Lynn was involved in, I had somehow become part of it too. Kieran explained everything, and it felt like the ground was slipping from beneath me. Lynn wasn't just a bar girl looking for work. She was deeply entangled in something far more dangerous. She owed a massive debt to some very dangerous people. And from what Kieran told me, she had gotten involved in robberies to try to pay it off. Her situation was much worse than I could have ever imagined, and somehow, by being close to her, I had become a part of it.
You need to leave Pattaya.
Kieran said, his voice steady but filled with urgency.
They know who you are. They know where you're staying. You're not safe here anymore.
My heart pounded in my chest. Everything felt surreal, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The sense of danger was palpable, and the reality of it hit me hard. I was now in the crosshairs of people I didn't know, all because of my brief involvement with Lynn. The next morning, I wasted no time. I packed my bags quickly, barely able to focus. As I moved through the hotel and down the streets, the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Every glance from a passerby felt like more than just curiosity. My skin crawled with the constant sense of danger. I boarded a bus out of Pattaya, my heart still racing, struggling to process how my once carefree vacation had spiraled into something out of a crime thriller. The shock of it all hadn't settled in yet. All I knew was that I had to get out, fast. But even as the bus pulled away from the city, I couldn't shake the feeling that the trouble wasn't entirely behind me. I continued my trip in Bangkok, trying to put the events in Pattaya behind me, but Lynn was always on my mind. I couldn't stop wondering, was she really mixed up in something so dangerous, or was Kieran exaggerating to scare me off? Part of me still felt connected to her and wanted answers. I even thought about going back to the bar where we met, confronting her and getting the truth. But deep down, I knew it was a bad idea. It was pointless to dig any deeper, and it was definitely safer to stay away from that entire mess. Months passed, and I started to settle back into normal life, though the memories of that trip still haunted me. Then one day, out of the blue, I got a message on the Line app from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. The message was simple. "Jake, I'm okay. Sorry and thank you." It was from Lynn. That short message left me with a mix of emotions. Relief that she was okay, but also a strange sense of closure. It wasn't much, but it felt like a final chapter to that wild and confusing time. Even though I'll never fully understand what happened or who Lynn really was, that message gave me a small bit of peace. Looking back, I can see that I should have just stuck to the two-night turnover that so many experienced travelers recommend when visiting Thailand and engaging with bar girls. Keeping things casual and not getting too involved would have saved me from all the stress and confusion. But it's a lesson I'll always remember. This experience has taught me more than I ever expected. Thanks for listening, guys. It feels good to talk about it. Take care. Bye.